Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to me to moderate this virtual conference. My name is Carla Rua, and I'm the head of strategic projects and innovation at the Port of Barcelona. Today, our topic is Smart as Future Core Port concept. And we have a very good panel of experts from some ports and also from a technological provider. I know that this is a very, very good panel because when we started to organize this virtual conference, I started to receive information about the panelists, and the concept of smart is very subjective. I mean, when you're talking about the smart ports, it's like when you're talking about the smart people. No, everybody considers that they are enough smart, no? But you are really smart if the rest of the world, the rest of the people considers you as a smart guy. No? So it's not what you say, it's what people say about you. No? And in order to become a smart port, my opinion is that you need to do many things. You need to do smart actions, you need to develop smart projects, but also you need to explain them, because if not, the rest of the ports, the rest of the people will not know what you are doing, and people will not know that you are really smart, okay? I know that all the panelists here are developing a lot of smart things because I personally know most of them, and I know, and I following the ports and what they are doing and so on. And also they are explaining a lot of things because I meet them in a lot of seminars or webinars or something like that. So they are acting in the smart way, doing things, and also explaining that things to the rest of the people. So they are very, very, very smart. As a moderator, the organization has asked me to make an introductory explanation or to fit the topic and so on. We have had a very small technical problem, is that I have not the presentation or the voice. I mean, you can choose to hear me or to see my presentation. So at the end, the presentation is in hands of Elnara from BS Group, the organization, and I'm speaking 3,000 kilometers far away from her. So I will have to manage in some way to give advice about changing the slides and so on. So please, Esnara, could you open my presentation? Okay, thank you very much. Next one, please. First of all, I will to fit the topic with the definition of the concept of a smart port. A smart port is a term, a general term meaning the use of new technologies in port to become more sustainable. And sustainable means from the economical point of view, from the environmental point of view, or from the social point of view. And also there are many synonymous words used to define a smart port. Port 4.0, port of the future, intelligent port, sustainable port, digital port, etc. Okay, Elnara, please. In Barcelona, a few years ago, we defined the concept of a smart port. In fact, what we did at that moment, when smart ports started to appear in the air, is to look to some other environments that were considered themselves smart. And the first element that we found in that way was smart cities. So we look at the smart cities, we investigate what the smart cities were doing, and they were working mainly in 6 different directions. They were trying to improve their mobility, they were trying to improve the environment, They were trying to improve the economy of the city, the people, to make the city a better place to live, to improve the governance of the cities, and the last thing was to improve the living in the cities. This is the only point of a smart city model that doesn't fit a lot with the concept of a smart port. So we changed the concept of living with the concept of logistics and developed a model based in these 6 elements. So if you want to consider yourself a smart port, you have to work in these 6 elements. That's our opinion. You have to improve your mobility, because in the port you have trucks, vehicles, people, etc. You have to be a sustainable port in the environmental point of view. You have to provide resources for the economy in your surrounding areas, in your hinterland. You have a lot of people working inside the port area. There are more than 40,000 people working every day in the port of Barcelona. You need to establish a governance in the wide sense of the word. That means in the relationship between agents, between the administrations, and so on. And also, of course, we are a port, we are in the middle of a logistic change. You have to improve this logistic chain. Okay. So with that, we started also to analyze what ports were doing. I mean, we have a good relation with many ports. In fact, with all the ports that are now in this panel, we know them from a lot of years. And we look at what they were doing, where they were working on. No? And Elnara, please. And we identified 3 big areas where the concept of smart were putting on. And mostly all ports are working in these 3 dimensions. The first one is the digitalization. Ports are trying to improve their processes, to improve their services, and in that way they use digital elements in order to do that. And here there are many topics that most ports are working on. We are talking about digital process, port optimization, sea traffic management, analytics, digital twins, track and trace of containers and other kinds of cargo, cyber security, artificial intelligence, etc., etc. The second element that most ports are working on is the energy transition, or the environmental sustainability, if you want. No? Here, ports are working in the new fuels development, in power generation, in the concept of a smart grid, in circular economy, in renewable sources of energy like photovoltaic or windmills or the waves, energy from the waves, and so on. But also some concepts included in the digitalization part, operational efficiency, reduction of queues, and so on. And the third element that many ports are working on is the concept of open innovation. And more ports are developing innovation hubs, are working with startups, with scale-ups, with spin-offs. But also here you have to identify some partnerships and technical cooperations with research centers, with universities, and so on. Okay, so most of all these elements, if you combine all of them and you are working on, not on all of them, but in many of them, you can consider yourself a smart port. I will put one example of each development in the Port of Barcelona, only as an illustrative way. No? We are working from the digital point of view, we are working on artificial vision. We have identified that artificial vision is an interesting tool because for some problems is better than sensors and than other kind of IoT systems. For example, to identify what's happening in the port, to follow what people, cruise passengers or ferry passengers are doing, if they take a taxi, if they take a bus, if they are going by foot, or to identify the queues of trucks or something like that. No? With a camera, it's easy to develop this kind of operations. And I think that it's a technology that sometimes is not so used, it's not very used or very considered, but it's very powerful under our point of view. In terms of energy transition, we're working in many things, OPS, photovoltaic energy, but one element we are working on quite recently is in the concept of energy islands, as an example. An energy island means a place, a small place inside the port where you have consumption, production, and storage of energy at the same time using batteries. Okay. The concept, our idea for the future is that the port itself can be in the future a very big energy island where there are simultaneous production, storage and consumption of energy, you know. But at this moment we have started with some pilots in areas in the port, and then we will try to scale up this initiative. And in terms of open innovation, we have in the Port of Barcelona maybe the most relevant example of open innovation, of a success open innovation in Europe is Port XL and RDM in Rotterdam, of course, because it's the biggest startup hub for the maritime transport in Europe. But for example, in Barcelona, we have Pier 01. Pier 01 is one of the most successful innovation hub in Europe. It's considered some rankings considered Pier 01 in the 5th position in Europe in terms of preferred places for innovate in Europe. No, but anyway, so we are working in many of these actions with some projects. We have many more. Elnara, please. The question that we can put over the table is why to innovate, okay? And mainly, we are innovating because port operations, in many cases, are becoming a commodity. I mean, to load and unload the container, everybody knows how to do that. All the cranes are the same, all the terminals are very similar. So you need a differentiation and also diversification of your activity. Additionally, you have some uncertainty in this moment in the world because transport demand, because pandemics, because disruptions. We are in an energy transition world. The technological availability is here, but you need to use it. And also there is an increased competition between ports. All ports are in a process of enlargement, or many ports are in a process of enlargement. But the question is that we are not so sure that the cargo will increase in the same way in Europe, okay? Please, Elnara. How to be a smart port? There are two options, two clear options. You can be a leader or a follower. Both of them are okay for a port. It's very difficult to be a leader in everything. So probably you have to select some strategic points for you to lead, and then to try to be a good follower in the rest of the elements that you can consider as a smart port, okay? So only few ports can be a leader in everything. Elnara, please. And to end this introduction, I would like to give you some, how to say, recommendations in each of the topics that smart ports are trying to cover. Related to the concept of digitalization, well, this is based on our experience, but I think that you have found a solution to a problem and not a problem to a solution. I mean, because this is something that, sorry, Kaustad, because you are a technological provider, but sometimes technology providers are giving you a technology and then they are searching the problem in order to solve that. And maybe this is not the best way to act. The second recommendation is to be careful with the magical words. Today it's very easy to talk about blockchain, artificial intelligence, cloud, twin ports, and so on. But really go to the first sentence. Find first the problem, then the solution, and at last go to search the right technology to solve the problem, but not vice versa. And at the end, in a port environment, maybe not all, but most of the problems is information sharing. I mean, it consists in sharing information. Related to, please, Elnara, again. Related to energy transition, well, it's mandatory. You need to drive your port and your chain networks to an energy transition, to a sustainability. We are not only talking about environmental sustainability. We're talking also about social, about economical sustainability. And also you have to take into account that we are talking about a long-term approach and huge amounts of money. Because energy transition in the maritime sector means to change everything: vessels, ports, bunkering, and so on. So it will take maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe 50 years, but we have to work on that, okay? And it's mandatory for us, for all ports, to work on that direction. And Elnara, please. Talking about the last element of this Smartport idea, working with the startups, that means the concept of open innovation, give you fresh air and open mind, but also you have to change your methodology. I mean, working with the startups is very difficult. This is our experience, because it's not to place a problem and they will provide you with a solution. You have to work with them, you have to help them, and they are very expert in some concrete things, so you have to concrete the problem. But then the rest of the port environment is unknown for them. I mean, for example, we are working with some startups specialized in artificial vision, as I've told you, but they are experts in artificial vision. They know nothing about ports. So they can solve your problem, but then when you ask them, okay, please, can you integrate your solution with my applications? They are out of the market. They need your help. They need some support in order to do that. And you have to be aware of that situation. So, and only, and to end, Lara, the last one, only a message: the world is changing. Business as usual is not an option. So you have to be sustainable. You have to be smart. Okay. And now, this excellent panel that we have will try to deep on some of these topics I placed on the table. Okay. The first speaker here will be Pete Obstaller. Pete Obstaller is an innovator and enablement manager for the Port Authority of Antwerp. He's one of the drivers of the digital transformation in this port. He holds 2 masters in history and spatial and urban planning, postgraduated in energy and environmental manager, and MBA in international management. And also he is an innovator. He has innovating blood, because he is working in some startups in the Benelux, and one of the most important startups there, that is Teleatlas. Okay, so Pete, please. It seems that you will talk about twin ports.
No, it's about digital twin also. Thank you, Carles, and also to the complete audience. Very nice to be with you here in a virtual way. I hope that all of you are safe and healthy in these times where I think most areas of Europe, Corona is increasing back again and having impact on our daily life, and of course also on our businesses. And what I would like to do with you in the coming 15 minutes is first have an introduction. Can you see my screen? I hope so. Sorry. Yes. First, I have an introduction, a few words on what's the Port of Antwerp. Secondly, like Carles already mentioned, we are in a period of fast technology development. Give some context on that. And as a third one, I will show you some specific examples, in particular about the digital twin we are developing in Antwerp. First of all, Antwerp, located 80 kilometers inland. It's a seaport, and we are connected to a big river. I don't go in detail here on the figures, but it's one of the larger ports in the world in area. So it's 120 square kilometers, 12,000 hectares in size. That's a challenge in management. But it's also it's also giving a lot of opportunities if we look to innovation. We have 60,000 people coming in every day into the port. So there we have some challenges on mobility. And we have about 1,000 companies which are active. We have 30 to 50 large ones. We have an important chemical hub in Antwerp. Antwerp is the second largest chemical cluster in the world after Houston. But we have also a lot of smaller SMEs. We should not underestimate how fast technology is evolving today. You can say technology is only a means to, it's an enabler, that's completely true, but we are in a period where it's growing exponential. And I think everybody knows what that means since the Corona crisis, exponential growth of something, what the effect can be of that. Luckily here it's a positive effect. But to give one example, beginning of the 50 years ago, we had the first chips which were developed, computer chips. They contained 16 transistors. I think this week Apple released the new A14 chip, which contains 11.8 billion transistors, which are connected to each other on 5 nanometers. Keep in mind, if we talk about 1 nanometer, it cannot go more dense than that. Then we are at atom level. So, and it's not the end of an evolution, because within 5 to 10 years, when the first quantum computers will come into the market, then the processing power will not be 1,000 or 10,000 times faster than today. No, it will be 100 million times to 1 billion times faster than the processing power which is existing today. A second big element here is, and that's good for the financial people, is that technology is becoming cheaper and cheaper. Processing power, it's becoming, smartphones are becoming cheaper. Everyday laptops are becoming everyday cheaper. Storage, for 20 euro, you can rent a terabyte of data a month. So sensors, all kinds of sensors, becoming everyday cheap. And also that will be a big push into the market to accelerate technology development. Another example I just would like to share with you is how technology become part of our daily life. This is an overview of the evolution of the top 20 world brands, in China is not included here, in the last 20 years. And there you see back again that 2010 is a kind of turning point in accelerating technology, because companies which were there in the top 5 and the top 10, like Nokia, Intel, GE, they disappeared very fast. And you see some new kids on the block coming up from nowhere to be in the top 3 or in the top 5, like Amazon or Google coming up quite fast. I think the only company who has been there for 20 years is Microsoft, and it's dropping a little bit around 2010, but I think in the meantime, they reinvented themselves and have a strong position. Also in the last 6 months, where the stock market in the US decreased a lot, and a lot of companies lost a lot of their market value, all tech companies, they increased their market value hugely. I think it was in total more than $1,000 billion of new market value, which was created specifically by tech companies, while the other ones were losing $4,000 to $5,000 billion. But okay, just to give it you, don't underestimate that. Don't be afraid of that, because technology will be part more than ever of our daily life and our businesses in the coming 10 to 20 years. But if we come back to the Port of Antwerp, we have 5 strategic priorities on mobility, on sustainable growth, on safety, security, operational excellence, on energy transition, on digital transition. I think these programs and these targets are quite clear. We have programs behind that. We have strategic projects behind that. But why are we doing that? Of course, it's to, I think Carlos mentioned already some of these elements. It's to become more efficient. It's to become more sustainable. Because also our mission is to be a home port vital for a sustainable future. If we look at what's now the role of innovation and technology, we see technology as a main driver to make that transition, to make the digital transition. Not all innovation is digital. Some projects are less technologically oriented, but okay. Actually, and I don't go in detail here, but we have 4 main pillars, building blocks in our innovation strategy. First of all, and that's an important one, you should have an outside-in approach, because evolution is going so fast, and technology, which was not working 1 year ago, is maybe working tomorrow. So if you test something, if you do something, and it doesn't work in your environment, in your company, please look to it back again within 6 months, because it's going so fast that maybe within 6 months it's relevant to use it. So we have been doing 30, 40 proof of values in the last years to say, can we use existing technology and what does it mean in a port context? And these projects were very useful because you learn so much in doing that. Like the small picture there, we developed, I think, first ever an autonomous sounding boat. We have been working 2 years in that, but in the meantime, it became a complete sensor and data platform. So by doing things, innovation is also do things. By doing things, you learn so much. Okay, second topic is we are a 1,500 people organization. Experiment. Take people within your organization, take them with you, give them time, budget, and support them in creating new ideas and realizing new projects. I think, and that's relevant for all ports. We are big infrastructure asset-oriented companies, mostly active in large areas. For all of these emerging technologies, we see a lot of different use cases. Recently, we did an inventory on drones. What are the potential use cases of drones in the port context? We had a list of more than 45. And coming back to that, we did that for digital twin. We have a list of more than 110 potential use cases in the port business. So we see ourselves as being an open innovation platform where we attract and support technology companies in developing their products and testing their products in a complex environment, and also support them in bringing these technologies to an operational level, because that's very hard to bring new developed technology to a real operational level, because that means you need new processes, you need to have the people on board, you need change programs and so, but it's crucial to do that. And the last one is about community building. I think as a port authority, we have also a role to work together with the complete port platform and accelerate innovation on that. And in Antwerp, we have several initiatives on that, but I don't go in detail here. Okay. So COVID, we see 3 major impacts there overall. Of course, the first one, and it's a proof here, having this webinar, teleworking, virtual meeting, distance learning, I think that will be there and it will not disappear back again. Second, and I think that will have a major impact, is an accelerated increase in automation, robotization, and digitalization. We see in Antwerp, the breakbulk companies who have a higher level of digitalization suffered less from the COVID crisis than companies having a very low digital maturity level. So it pays off very much if you have a more digital environment. Automation, I think contactless supply chains will become the standard in the future. So have a decoupling between human action and production will become more and more part of that. And already today, you see more focus on ports and then airports, for instance. Airport business, they are suffering a lot, and I think it will be there, unfortunately for them, still in the coming year, 2 years. It seems, and like in Antwerp, and I think it was the case for most ports, we remained operational in the last 6 months. So we have been fully, which is of course important to ensure that these good, supply chains and good of flows of goods, that it was still there, so that people, that food and pharma and all of that was still coming in. So that proved that ports have a crucial role in sustaining these global supply chains. And okay, last one, I think difficult way to define what the exact impact will be, but re-engineering of the supply chain, nearshoring, I think less dependency of China, other ways of transport will probably emerge out of these costs. Okay, people say sometimes, yeah, but machines will take over our life and so on. I think that's not true. I think technology should be there to support, to assist. I think nobody likes to do stupid work or repetitive work. If that can be done by machines, please let it do by machines, and let's look for jobs where people can create really value. Not always easy, but it's a direction we should go. And I think at the end, everybody should become happier based on that. So we really believe in a kind of combination of the human and the digital, where certain sensors and technology can support the human in doing his job better, safer, cheaper. And I think the digital twin is there an example of. Here you see a picture of 1930, almost 100 years ago. In Antwerp, there was the World Exposition. You see a maquette of the city and then the port of Antwerp at that moment. So that was still an analog twin which was built. Today, in Antwerp, we built a digital nervous system. You see some screenshots here where, based on combination of data, a digital copy, a digital replica of the world is created. So what does it mean? Not to give too much theory here, but we see 9 dimensions. It's actually based on a model of McKinsey, where 9 dimensions of technical functionalities are listed up. So a digital twin is all about data and handling data and analytics around it, artificial intelligence. Or here, it's about visualization, and that can go from a very simple 2D model to a full rendered advanced 3D model with dynamic and real-time updates. It's about situational awareness. Like in Antwerp, we have a large port with a lot of ships coming in. What's the situation now? Do we see issues? Is there an incident? Is there an intrusion? Is there an explosion? Where are our tugboats? Where are the barges? And so to have a real-time view so you can do a better management of your port. We believe strongly in that. Digital twins can also be used for simulation and physical modeling. We focus less on that. Very useful to do that, but also very complex. We believe that engineering companies are probably better equipped to build these simulations. Automated system, and that's coming all together there, is that in the future we will have more and more automated work processes without human input. And actually the vision we have is that we call it the APICA concept, where we have a system where automatically alerts are generated where and when people need to intervene. We don't need people looking to 25 screens and video streams. No, we need a system which is intelligent and give us relevant alerts when something important or less important is happening in the port. Okay, that's a little bit the building blocks which are part of that digital twin, that digital nervous system. So three big components. On the left side, you see all the data streams, and that's varying from sensors, machine vision algorithms, radar, IES data, other external databases, drones, weather informations, uh, water sensors, video streams, and so on. SCADA systems. So more and more, and every day we will, and already today, there's a lot of data in the port. In the future, that will only increase. So all that data is coming together in your data management system, in your data lake, where you have on one hand your real-time operational data, on the other hand you build up historical data to do analysis, and on top of that you build your AI algorithms and your intelligence for that system. And then at the right side you need to visualize that, and you can have that in different applications. You can have on mobiles or laptops, that can be virtual simulations, that can be integrated into traffic management systems, and so on. So these three building blocks, I think it's crucial to have them all aligned and fully integrated. Okay, so what we did now in Antwerp is that we start building, I think 2 years ago we started building this environment. I don't go in detail here on the complete architecture behind that, but in the meantime, that's a list here of the 110 possible use cases. And you see it's about asset management, it's about security, it's about port operations, it's about sustainability. We have identified different technologies which can support that, machine vision, AR, VR, automation, IoT, and so on. And also, like you see here, we put some prioritization on it. So there we go to an integration and also visualization of data, so, which can be the source and which should feed all these different use cases. I have a small movie also on this. Do you hear the sound or? Sorry? Hello? Yeah. You should not touch the screen. Okay, so thank you. If you have any questions, please.
Okay, Pete, thank you very much. I don't know the rest, but I've not been able to see the video in a good way because it was only much, not in a continuous way. So they were image appearing every half a second in my screen. But
I can send the link to YouTube if you want.
Yeah, please, because it seems very interesting. Okay. Our next speaker is not a port, is a technological provider. Kaustop Dalby from your EDI is the Maritime Logistics Sales Director. He previously held the Global Business Development Portfolio of Elite Terminal Operating System. He's a Master Mariner with an MSc and Global Logistics and SCM. And Kaustop has a vast experience and he's a very respected voice in the maritime industry. So please, Kaustop.
So, thank you very much, Carlos. Can you see my screen properly? I hope. So, as Carlos said, my name is Kaustop Dalby, and I'm representing your EDI. We provide supply chain and logistics, data connectivity solutions, and the topic of my presentation today is something which we have been discussing with ports and terminals around the world, which is data integration, and typically the challenges that ports and terminals face in this data integration space. As we've heard before, speakers as well, the data is increasing quite exponentially, and how can we sort of address these challenges? So before actually we actually proceed, if we have to look back into the past sort of 8 to 9 months and what has impacted our lives or the maritime industry, and there's no denial that COVID-19 has got a huge impact. And I would like to take this point, at this point, the major impact or the most impact have been the seafaring community. I'm told as of today, around 300,000 seafarers around the world are stranded, are not able to get home. They've already extended their contracts beyond their typical 9 months. So they are really stranded and they cannot get back home, meeting their families and relatives. So we have to give them the due respect in terms of making us sort of connecting us and their contribution towards the maritime trade. Apart from that, if you see at the trade level itself, supply chains, as my previous speaker also said, supply chains are getting disrupted. They're readjusting around the world, and new manufacturing models and hubs are emerging. What we've also seen in 8 to 9 months in the past is the compliance and regulatory environment is increasing, whether it is government level compliance or policies that are introduced by the port authorities, or even business level. So the compliance levels are increasing quite rapidly, which is going to impact how operations are conducted. From a port perspective, again, if you see the number of blank sailings have increased, although they're improving now. I believe things are changing and they're reducing. But in the past 7 to 9 months, there's been lots of blank sailings, which has caused port congestions and primarily increased the dwell time at the port. So essentially, we all would sort of kind of agree that we are living in a very volatile and uncertain environment, which is going to be normal. And we are going to rely on a lot of real-time information and data. I also believe that, we also believe that everything is not negative. There have been some positive outcomes as well through this COVID, which was also pointed out by the previous speaker. There have been opportunities to consolidation and acquisitions, which has created unique supply chain models, integrated ones. I mean, if you look at some of the ones which come to my mind, one is the acquisition of Seva Logistics by CMA CGM, or the acquisition of Unifeeder by DP World. So these are good examples where sovereign companies are offering sort of integrated solution for conducting business. But overall, this, as someone mentioned earlier as well, and Carlos and my previous speaker as well, that technology is the key enabler in all this. And many port operators and terminals we come across have increased the adoption of this technology or started increasing the adoption due to COVID. Primarily, if you see, cloud computing is picked up quite a lot. Many of the systems you'll come across, which you will see down my presentation, have been offered in the past on-premise. But now these are being offered in the cloud so that you can move everything offsite. Secondly, also, Carlos mentioned about 5G adoption, which is going to help as we keep developing smart cities and integrating with the Smartport initiatives as well. But all this, it creates an environment of what you may call it a tsunami of digital products and services. As Carlos started off, I like that, that everyone is pushing a solution to you and for a problem you don't have, essentially. So it's very important to identify a problem and see if the technology actually fits that problem or not. So next is, if you look at these solutions, then what are the problems we come across, in terms of in ports and terminals? And I'm not looking just to previous 8 to 9 months of COVID. What we are looking even going beyond that, is in the past, ports have been slow in adopting digital technologies for various reasons, good or bad. A typical, purchase cycle in the port, in my experience, for an enterprise grade system has been anywhere between 9 months to 3 years. This is changing now as more and more startups are coming, people are more adopting technology faster. Second thing, from an information point of view, if you see, there are multiple documents we all know are interchanged with multiple entities, whether it's the shipping line, the shipper, the freight forwarder, consignee, consignors. There are a lot of documentation which is exchanged. And with multiple entities, as I said, in multiple times, in different times, and in multiple formats. This is essentially to track the information of the cargo. Then on top of that, if you see, the planning and execution which is happening is been used by using multiple systems, and again, the next slide, which I'll show, will highlight, and Pete also showed some of the systems that have been deployed in Port of Antwerp. Multiple systems are used. Public platforms like AIS are used to get information. And on top of that, you have process automation technologies, just like you mentioned about vision intelligence or weigh scales. So all these systems are utilized, but they utilize in isolation. What we've come across many times in a number of ports. So what that does is they are not integrated. If they're not integrated, then how does the data move from one system to other? How is the handshake happening? And in many times these are done by using manual processes. So the manipulation of spreadsheets or moving data in different formats. There is a lack of integration and standards of integration here. So all this manual processing, again, something which has been highlighted, it takes a lot of time to collect, analyze, and transport this data. And these are typical repetitive tasks which can be automated if you by deployment of right technology. And again, we are talking about planning, but when real data comes into play, for real information. So a load list is arrived, for example, in a container terminal, or an ETA change is happening. These are often communicated many times in unstructured format. So using phone calls or emails or text messages. So all these, has an impact on the decisions that are taken both, at a strategic level or an operational or tactical level. Because data, is first of all not leveraged from all the sources, and secondly, it is not recent data. And these are some of the things which impact the decision making of a port, in our opinion, in a short, mid, and long term as well. So as Carlos started the webinar saying what is everybody's interpretation of Smartport is different, and smart analogy is different. So from a technical standpoint, how we see it as a smart mode is a one which brings all this data together, and connects the data, discovers the insight from the data so that you can collaborate and share information and identify new opportunities. It's just not you as isolation as the port, but it's also your trading partners and the community outside the port needs to get the value out of it. So that to us from a technical standpoint or integration standpoint is a smart port. I've heard this metaphor before around, data being the new oil, and we all have heard that. And I believe, if data has to be the new oil, then ports need to be the checksum that flows the oil through it to the various parties. And for this to happen, integration, in our opinion, is the key, which will all bring all this together. So as I said, this is, when you talk about integration, this is a humble depiction of what integration looks like in a port environment. It's impossible to capture all the data points and integration points here, but we have made an attempt to capture it. So you see there, as I mentioned earlier, there are lots of systems that are used, the planning systems, execution systems, like the TOS, the PCS, the POS. You have the value-added networks and community platforms, public platforms, which I mentioned, like AIS data or the vision capture data. Then these days you come across the initiative from Maersk, the trade lens integration. So all this information is being utilized at the port and has been used to some certain extent to communicate to the trading partners in different shape, different formats. And we increasingly see that the challenge with this with the ports and terminals to bring all this data together. And that is where your EDI kind of plays a huge role. Of course, we can provide solutions and systems to bring all this data, but again, there are certain barriers which we've come across after surveying a lot of ports around the world, terminals around the world. And we did surveys, and we've come across these three major barriers which we feel has a huge impact in adoption and uptake of digital initiatives or integration technologies. Starting with sort of technical foundation. So when I say technical foundation, it's about platform, an integration platform that provides a solid, secure platform that connects data in any format, whether it's on-premise or using cloud-based applications, or public or private data. You need a technical foundation to bring all this together. Second thing is the internal alignment. So this is very important, as Pete mentioned, that it's not just about technology, it's about the people driving the technology as well, which matters the most. So you need to get that buy-in from all participants and stakeholders to bring all this together, which is extremely, extremely crucial for any digital initiative to succeed. And last but not the least is lack of resources and internal capabilities. This is, ports are the core business is to move freight and focus on that and making sure that it happens the most productive and efficient way. And this is where, again, I said platform providers like us, like our EDI, can play a very important role. So if you look at these three barriers in adoption and how we can address them, through our EDI. First of all, the platform itself, your EDI is a cloud-based middleware solution for any logistics provider, not just the port, but also the trading partners as well, whether it's the freight forwarder, or the port, the terminal, carriers, or the shippers, or the beneficial cargo owners here. We provide a fully managed and operated sort of secure data connectivity layer, which allows you to connect any applications to any applications together. And we can harmonize the data and enrich it so that it's available for you for the right use. Although it looks simple on the face of it, but getting the alignment from the key stakeholders is very important, as I said earlier as well, to get the big bang for the buck from what you choose as a technology. And we have done this integration work across sort of 100-odd implementations around the world for the last 10 to 12 years. And we have a really proven methodology which allows us to make sure that all stakeholders are aligned, and right from you coming on board with us throughout the life cycle. Because we are a managed service provider as well, we can actually control it quite successfully. Then comes, as I said, the lack of sort of in a way like competency level. Many times, ports are constrained by the day-to-day activities, and constrained to take on digital initiatives, as I said, due to lack of resources. So using, your EDI, you could solve this essentially solve this problem because, as I said, we are fully managed. Our team consists of domain experts. So as Carlos mentioned to start with, sometimes you might have a great technical solution provider, but they might lack the domain experience in it. But we have a team comprises of that, which backs the technology quite strongly, and that's why we are fast. Because if you look at historically, which I've come across, integrations can take anywhere between 9 months to forever, sort of thing. But with your EDI, we can be really fast. Some of them we have done in few days or few hours as well, and primarily because of the deep domain knowledge and the technical stack we have. Second thing is the agility of the team itself and how our platform has evolved and has been in production for the last, as I said, 12 years. So new features can be adapted. Your business changes, we can adapt to those changes and incorporate in the platform as you grow. Flexibility of the solution also is important. And what we do is we can, as I said, we can connect any application to any application. We can handle any types of data, whether it is, legacy EDI, or you're using flat files, CSV files, or using modern APIs. Many of these systems which are being used at the ports are not able to communicate with some of this modern technology which has evolved and coming. And we can be the middleware solution, quite flexible in actually handling this kind of situations. And most effectively, we are very cost effective, most importantly, because of the, all these components which we have added over the last decade or so, developing the knowledge of the port, developing the technical stack and the methodology, which allows us to deliver quickly and efficiently. So, finally, if I were to summarize, even it's been repeated, I'm perhaps going to repeat my previous speaker as well. Technology adoption is happening fast, and for adopting this technology, I think data aggregation or integration cannot be a luxury anymore. It cannot be on the back burner, as data is growing immensely in terms of volume, in terms of velocity, in terms of variety, And as we said, technology is getting commoditized, it's getting cheaper, which means you're going to get more and more systems coming into play as you go forward, generating more and more data. And the data aggregation is going to only grow in complexity. And to address this complexity, I think, we believe that in the most automated and efficient way, you need a solid platform like your EDI that is highly available, is secure, is scalable, and most importantly, I believe it's fully managed by a team, because many times ports don't have the time to actually do this themselves. So it needs to be managed by a team that knows the port domain, that knows the technology stack. I think, I hope I'm on time, and that's my final slide. But yeah, I'm sure we have a Q&A session, and I'm happy to address any other questions that may come up.
Thank you very much, Kaustubh. I remember at the dinner a few years ago with my friends, in which one of my friends asked me, but what do you do in ports, really? And my answer was, we manage information, and sometimes in the middle appears a container. So I really think that our job as a port authority, as a port coordinators, as a port managers, our role is to move information, and to move information. So if not, the port is absolutely useless, okay? Okay, our next speaker from the Port of Amsterdam is Jan Ekbenstern. Jan is the Manager Innovation at the Department of Strategy and Innovation. He has an MBA for Management and Logistics from the Technical University Twente in the Netherlands. And he has been working at the port since 1994, and previously he was a business consultant and project manager strategist. So please, Jan.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me all. If it's not so, just raise your hand. Well, what's the digital challenge if you talk about seaports? Well, if you look at a port, now it seems that my presentation is stuck. I'm sorry, my presentation is somehow stuck. I don't know. No, it's not. If you look at port, the traditional port model is what you see on the left, and the IT is mostly about the transport flows within a port. If you look at the present, the port model is also about energy transition. It's about circular industry, about bio-based industry. And for instance, in energy transition, what you see is that the electrification of the present industries is getting larger. So companies need more electricity. At the same time, you've got windmills in your port area. You've got solar panels, which means that there will be peaks in electricity, not a demand, but an electricity delivery to your system. So smart ports is also about, for instance, smart electricity grids. So how can you make better use of your existing electricity grids? If you talk about smart ports, one of the main questions most of us here are port authorities is what's a smart port authority and what's the role of a smart port authority in a smart port? Because a smart port, actually, perhaps you should talk more about a smart port community. A lot of things that happen in the port as a port authority are not involved in it. I don't operate cars or trains or trucks or ships. I don't operate terminals. New developments like smart supply chain finances are a little bit farther away from me as a port authority than from the industrial companies in the port, or the companies who are part of the supply chain running through your port. When we talk about smart ports, it's always a challenge to see who are the players, who are the stakeholders, what's their role, what are their problems, and what role can you play as a port authority to make sure that they can be smart. There have been talks about a port digital twin. And the basis of this digital twin is, of course, your geographical information system, your map, and on that you can put several layers. It's got 3 dimensions. The Rubik's Cube always works quite well. You've got the dimension of the data generation. You can use sensors for that. The data storage, but also data sharing, because it's a smart port authority. You have to answer yourself, what data do I have, which I could share with the parties, the companies in the port, or the companies in the supply chain. So what data could they use, which I have, and if I could provide it to them, they can have a better efficiency, for instance, for the short term. It's also about data analysis, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. In the Rubik's Cube, you have the other basis, which is about short, medium, and long term. For instance, data helps terminals to have a better estimated time of arrival of the ship, so they can have a better efficiency in their operational planning. On the medium term, this data can help us as a port authority if there is a new investment in a new terminal. What will be the effect of the terminal on the neighboring terminals? What will be the effect on the existing roads and railroads for the capacity? On the long term, the data I could use, for instance, for my strategic development of the port. So make some scenario plannings or try what happens if there is a new harbor basin. What's the effect of the new harbor basin on the existing railroads? Where do I have to put in investments in new railroads? The data can be used for 3 different themes. It can be part of your port operations and the commercial side of the port. It can have can be important for the sustainability and the environment, and it can affect the physical port or the physical infrastructure, so a more efficient use of your physical infrastructure. What role can you play as a port authority? Of course, we are a landlord port, so we are market master. You can lease a piece of land at quayside from us. At the same time, you see a lot of innovations going on. Innovations where we can be a matchmaker to make, to get together the stakeholders about a new innovative aspect. For instance, what could 5G mean for ports? We can try to we can try to solve the puzzle ourselves, but we can also get into discussions with the companies in the port. Where could 5G or IoT or other buzzwords help you for better efficiency? And then the next phase is that you could be a co-creator as a port. Also relatively conservative. It's about data sharing, but a lot of companies in the port are not willing to share data because that's competitive information for them. But if you really want to get to the next phase of smart ports, you would have to share data. What role could blockchains play in that? At the same time, you have to realize that a lot of companies in the ports, the logistic planning departments, 50% of them, roughly around 50%, plan with Excel spreadsheets. So there you come with your blockchain solution, your APIs, and your data exchange models, where they still plan based on Excel sheets. And they have 20 to 30 calls an hour asking the ship owner, where is your ship? When does the train arrive? Why are you late? What's your cargo on board? So the challenge as port authority is not to please all your stakeholders, but to define who is the coalition of the willing. Who is willing to take the step with you to become co-creators for new innovations? In the Port of Amsterdam, we have Product, that's a living lab area where startups can find a place. It's not focusing on offices, but it's mainly focusing on production spaces. There are two companies at the moment who develop floatable drones. You can't see it on the picture, but behind this building is a harbor basin where they have a testing zone for floatable drones. Normally, in port regulations, floatable drones are not acceptable because there's no captain on board. So what we did in our harbor regulations, we have a special permit which we can provide for people who want to test floatable drones or autonomous ships. We are partner in an investment fund, Mainport Innovation Fund, together with Schiphol Airport and the Dutch Railways, and there we invest in startups from 400,000 or 500,000 euros in equity up to $1 million and a half. And those is early seed, so these are startups who have a demo product ready, who have some first customers, but who still need money to develop to get to the rounds A or the rounds B, because the banks are not willing to invest because it's too risky for them. The fund focuses on mobility, so there's person movement, but also on transport and logistics. One example is, for instance, We4C. It's a company that uses the sensors which are already in the ship, on the engines, on the steering wheels, etc. They take out the data and they transform the data by artificial intelligence to advise the captain, but also the ship owners for more fuel efficiency. There's a few examples where we don't operate ships, but we can try to help startups to get a more innovative and a more sustainable port development. Talking about data, as you all know, ships, sea ships and barges use AES transponders, so there you can know where they are. That sounds quite interesting, because if I know where the ship is, if I can follow it, if I know the existing currents or the wind speeds and the wind directions, I could predict an estimated time of arrival when the ship will be in Port of Amsterdam. But one of the problems when we got those enormous load of data, if you have an antenna, you can just take the AES data out of the air, is that it's quite often corrupted. On this picture over here, you see that this is one ship actually, in the movements of one ship, you can see that it sometimes sails over land. So together with the University of Amsterdam, with the Center for Mathematics and Informatics, we had a challenge how to get the corrupted data out of your big data files. So the data really means something and you could use it as information. Use the information, for instance, if you look up here, there are some waiting places for barges. And you can see some of them are red and some are green. This information we share with the national data platform, a national website for barges, riverside, where the owner of the ship, the captain of the barge, can see where there is a waiting place available in port. But he doesn't have to travel all around the port if he has to wait for the terminal to start loading and unloading. Talking about sensors, you see a lot of sensors coming up in the ports, for instance, on the railroads. And normally the railroads in the port area had no sensors or camera. You see sensors like this one, which is for the air quality. But what's perhaps interesting to mention is the case about the truck parking. We have a few truck parking places and we would like to provide the truckers with information. Is there a space available or not? So red means the truck parking place is full, orange means there is some space, green means there's a lot of space. And these sensors were specially built for us. Now, half a year later, we would not do that anymore. We could just buy them off the shelf. Internet of Things, an interesting application. But the next step was that the guys who developed this project had the idea that we would provide the data through our internet, through our website. Main problem is that the trucker on board of a truck does not look at our website to see if there's space available. He has his in-truck device. So now we are working on it to get the data freely available on a Dutch platform, and most on-truck devices use this platform to get the data where are parking spaces available. And get to another challenge, autonomous transport. Coming Monday, we will launch in the Netherlands autonomous ship platform. It's a national platform where the ship owners, ship builders, IT companies, sensor companies, but also the port authorities come together to try to develop autonomous shipping. As a Port of Amsterdam, I don't own any ships. So you could say, what do I have to do with the port authority to be able to accept an autonomous ship? So we did a serious game in the port together with other Dutch ports, the pilots, the tugboat captains. And part of this game was there is an autonomous ship coming into your port. It's in front of the port entrance. What are you going to do? So one of our nautical officers said, I pick up the Maritime and I call the ship. What are you going to do? What is your name? I said, that's not possible. There's no captain on board. It's an autonomous ship. So he looked at me and said, then the ship can't come in because the harbor regulations, national regulations and international regulations say that there has to be a captain on board. We cannot communicate if there's no captain, so the ship can't come in. So it's very interesting developments about autonomous ships, but actually you need an autonomous ship getting into an autonomous or a smart port. So how do ships and ports communicate with each other? I mentioned serious gaming. A lot of these discussions about digitalization and smart ports are about the technical developments. But like I said before, what you see is that quite a lot of companies in ports are relatively conservative. In intermodal transport, combining cargo could be a solution to get more trucks off the road and get the cargo on a train or on a barge. But the companies in the port are not so willing to share information because it's competitive. Technically, it's possible. You can combine data and get better logistics system in the port. But at the same time, a lot of innovation is about social innovation. So we use, together with Port of Rotterdam, serious gaming, where you put the people, actually the players and the stakeholders together in a room, you just play the game. This game has nothing competitive, but people started talking to each other and they started to cooperate and use data to be able to cooperate and to have a better efficiency in the whole supply chain. To conclude, why is digitalization, Internet of Things, Smartport such an important issue? Because it helps us for the efficiency in our daily working process, in the port, in the transport, in the logistical sites. It lowers logistical and transport costs in an integrated supply chain. It can lower the environmental impact. It can help us to have a more efficient use of our existing infrastructure, road, rail, water, but as I mentioned before, also the electricity grid could be more smarter and thereby having a better load. It can also give us insight in the long term. You can use it for scenario planning in your spot strategy. And actually there are two main challenges. If you look at using data or digitalization in the ports, one of them is the sharing of the data, and the other one is still the conservative industry. How can you find the coalition of the willing, who are willing together with you to get to a more innovative and smarter port? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jan. Our last speaker is my colleague from the Port of Valencia, Juan Manuel Diaz. He has more than 20 years of experience in port and maritime transport. Currently is my colleague in the Port Authority of Valencia, the head of strategic planning and innovation. He holds a PhD in industrial engineering for the Polytechnic University of Madrid and a master in science in port management and intermodal transport for the Universidad of Comillas, and also some diplomas on advanced studies in sustainability, development, and international cooperation from the University of Valencia. And he also has been technical director of FIPORTS, the Port Institute of the Valencia region, and the managing director of IPEC, the Port Institute of Studies and Cooperation. Juan Manuel, I think that you will talk about the second of the three big elements I talked about the Smartports, the sustainability and emission reduction. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Carlos, and thank you, the organizers, for giving me this opportunity of sharing with you some thoughts. Well, I have the luck to be the last one. That means that many of the things that I'm going to talk about are being already evoked, and I will just probably leave me time for focusing in what Carlos said, which is talk about this connection between smart ports and emission reduction and climate change fight, and giving also our view from the point of view of the Port Authority of Valencia around this subject. I will try to share my screen. Let's see if it's function. Should be that one. Oh, this one. Okay. Okay. So, well, just for those that don't know where we are in Valencia, let me check. Okay. So the Port Authority manages 3 ports. We are in the Mediterranean coast of Spain, Valencia, Sagunto, and Gandia. 5.5 million TEUs. We are the 5th port, container port in Europe, and the 1st in the Western Mediterranean. But as our colleague from Antwerp said before, we are also a quite big economic force in the region. So we have to also think about our impact in society. Well, I think it's clear that port-based logistics are key to contribute to global and regional challenges, because we ports as a sector, as an industry, we have a big impact in our society. So, and I think we have to be, and we are committed with the big goals, both internally, like the SDGs goals, and I think more and more ports are focusing their efforts and contributing to the goals. And in the European level, it's clear also that the future of Europe will be the Green Deal, the green growth, and I think that ports, we are here also to help this to happen. And also, yes, it's been also evolved. We've been key elements inside the port. The logistic chains have been key elements for providing necessary elements for our societies in these quite hard times for all. And that has given us some lessons, like learning that we have to be more resilient, more sustainable, of course, but also keeping competitive. Well, the way we see the Smartport is not, well, it's been already mentioned by many of you, but I will say it's in a kind of summary that we believe that there's 3 building blocks for ports to develop in these quite complicated times. That first we have to be connected, and of course digitalization it's here for helping to that, but also the connection with other members of the logistic chain. We have to be efficient, as I mentioned, of course, again using technologies. But, and I want to focus on that, we have to be responsible. We have to think about our emissions, about how we are going to help to the energy transition that Carlos mentioned, that is one of the 3 challenges, big challenges that we are facing now. We talk about circular economy and also integration with the city need, and we will talk about climate change. What are we going to do to protect for climate change? And also to keep being more safe and resilient. But there's also cornerstone that I want also to stress, the importance of the people, the human touch. So we have to also to be able to learn, to be homocentric, to develop to be open to new business opportunities, and quite important, to be ready to cooperate, to cooperating for competing. Okay, trying to develop these networks of knowledge where we share, we can learn it from each other, and I think we will in a win-win situation. Well, I like this chart because it shows how all the 4.0 industry initiatives are connected with the usual planning, operation, commercial, and other support activities along the ports. But all of them are somehow connected with this idea of decarbonization and environmental protection. Okay, in fact, it's not carbonization is also using all these technologies, but we have to focus also in our business. Okay, we have to be able to be ambidextrous, to be able to operate, to execute, but try to search these new opportunities. Here I have this chart showing how we've been growing the last 30 years and how we've been growing also in innovation. And during these years, we've carried out more than 200 RDI innovation projects. And we hope that this will bring us to our next big challenge as a port authority, that we want to be carbon neutral by 2030, okay? And we are sure that technology will help us to be there and to, at the same time, to be compatible with our growth. So how we are also convinced in this idea of the importance of the human factor and of cooperation. We launched in 2018 our innovation plan, but not for the Port Authority, but thinking about the port cluster. With our sister company, with the Fundación Valencia Port, we launched the innovation plan for the Valencia Logistic Port Cluster, okay, with the contributor of the key actors. And we identified 3 big challenges that somehow, of course, it should be like that, coincident with those mentioned by Carles. Environment, safety, and security, and energy transition, digitalization and automation, and new logistics business and collaborative models. We define 44 main innovation trends, focused in seven, in seven big elements that are part of the components of the port logistics change that all of you know. And also it's also based in this idea of cooperation with the port community and also with other international platforms, with this idea of this improving our networks of knowledge to be more, even, thank you, Carlos, because in your presentation you mentioned the importance of being smart, for being more smart, smarter and smarter, thanks to cooperation.
Okay.
Well, these are the three elements, how they are connected. And if you look to the list in the left, in environment, energy, and safety and security, you will find a lot of digitalization and automation initiatives also. And in the area of digitalization, you will see a lot of technologies that will be applied for emission reducing in them. And with this, we built a roadmap with decarbonization in 2030 in the center. But thinking about what we are going to start from now till where we want to get in 2040. Okay, this is a very complex. You can see different initiatives that we are going to launch. Of course, not by ourselves, but thinking also in the importance of others. Like this one, this is one initiative that we launched with the European Union initiative Climate Kick. We developed the Super Lab ports, it's a deep demonstration project that wants to create a lab port, but dedicated to climate change in the port and the shipping and the port industry. It's located here in the premises of the Port Authority of Valencia. And yes, it's a place for startups to come and to try to elaborate around this subject, climate change in ports and the shipping industry. We are now, well, it begins in 2019, and now it's already following some currents in this project. There are already one startup. They're working three startups working in the lab. But the idea is getting involved more and more startups with this, trying to create and to put the foundation for this climate change open innovation development. I will also share with you some of the projects that we are not in this roadmap that we've already started and that have been selected by the WPCSCP, the World Port Sustainability Program, in the last contest. It was awarded. One is the Green Seaports, which is let's say IoT development. It tries to develop a port environmental performance platform, recovering data from the different sessions. But the idea again is focusing in monitoring emissions and increasing efficiency and reducing carbon footprint and reducing emissions, and helping us to identify which technologies are helping us in this path to reducing zero emissions, to reducing emissions of the port. Well, also, it's been mentioned already the importance of the circular economy. So we also promote these loop ports with some of you are also a member as port authorities, which try to look to launch this circular economy networks for ports to begin to identify possibilities of flows, circular flows within the ports, and also finding circular markets, okay, to help to exchange this, which you have waste that can be used in another part, in another port or in another sector, then you can try to swap and integrate it. And of course, thinking about the circular assets and equipment management. Okay, I think this is a very good initiative, and more, I think I'm sure that the ports will be involved in circular economy initiatives with this idea also to improve our carbon footprint. Also very important for the energy transition is to begin to think about new possibilities of new fuels. And for that, we've launched the first application for hydrogen technologies in port handling, the H2 ports, which we are going to test two different elements, reach stackers and yard tractors in different terminals in the Port of Valencia. But also we want to test the refueling stations and the possibility of managing the use of hydrogen in the port. But we are also, we think this is like touch point for beginning to really use hydrogen, but we are involved in a big strategy, trying to think what would be what place we have the hydrogen or its derivatives in the future of fueling the port and the logistics sector and the shipping sector. Well, we are also involved in what's now the largest open innovation fund for the port logistic ecosystem, which is one that launched by Puertos del Estado, Port 4.0, in which we are a big part and big funder, and we want to, with this program, attract new ideas, fresh ideas, as also was mentioned before, coming from the innovation ecosystem outside the ports, because sometimes also mentioned we are ports, we've been very conservative. So we need this fresh air. We need to open the doors and ask the innovation environment to come and also with our help to define this new future that we want to create. And last, I want to share also with you one view, which I think is interesting. We are talking about the aftermath of the crisis. Well, we've been, of course, studying. I think we are all in ports trying to study, to identify what would be the effect, the lasting or not lasting effect of the COVID-19 on the traffic, and what we are going to expect in the coming years. Well, just to mention that we were working on this, and we put in our big scenarios of the future, and for as far as our in research with the Fundación Valencia Port, we identified that the green growth, that the so-called, what we call the green growth scenario, so a scenario based in the green technologies and the green market development in Europe, that will be the one that will give us the best opportunity to get out of this crisis. So, for conclusion, for concluding, I will just say something that, again, concluding the last is a little bit repeating what has been already said, but decarbonization in logistics is not an option anymore. We have to deal with it, because it's also in our interest. The other day, I read the report in The Economist talking about ports, saying that we are in the forefront. We are on the forefront of climate change impact. So it's also in our selfishness. And also we need for these new tools, we need these new Smartport tools. Digitization is definitely a key element, because it's also a key element for making a better use of resources and make better use of the information flows. We have to remember that we have to be more resilient and more sustainable in our logistic chains. And probably that's the question. Smart ports should be also more sustainable, efficient, and carbon neutral. And it looks like I heard you, Carlos, because my last word is that it's again, come back to the people. There won't be a smart port without smart people. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Juan Manuel. It's fantastic because I've started talking about the smart ports and the smart people, and I didn't know your presentation.
Yeah.
I've never seen, and you are finishing exactly with the same idea, linking smart ports and smart people. Okay, we are short of time, so I had some questions for you, but there are many questions from the audience, and probably it's better to ask first the question of the answers. If there is time, I will ask my doubts on that, no? Because I can solve in another moment with you. But anyway, I will go to the questions and answers. If some other one of the audience has another question or another something that he can want to ask, please put in the questions and answer aspect or button in your screen, please. So I've seen that there are some questions related to blockchain and electronic documents like bill of lading. So maybe we can join all together and talk about the use of block technology and the impact in port information management, and especially in the case of bill of lading. I know that the bill of lading is a very special document in the maritime environment, but what do you think about the impact of blockchain in our transactions, in our port community systems? It's for all of you, so if someone want to get the answer. Nobody?
I'll perhaps give it a shot at it. I think it's maturing. That's my take at it. The blockchain is maturing in terms of the performance of it. So as it keeps growing, and as the blocks, the faster performance of the blocks computing gets improving, the adoption hopefully improves going forward. But it definitely has value in terms of, distributed information, validation of information, consensus, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go into details of it, but from our maritime perspective, it definitely has an application area for document management, particularly when it comes to EBL. I'm not so sure it can be applied, like you've discussed this before, Carlos, as well. Like it's you don't want to use it as a solution for and then find a problem to fix it.
Okay. My impression on that is that the problem is that you need a universal solution, because the bill of lading is used everywhere in all the world. So, I mean, a particular solution developed in one local place is maybe you can use for one shipping line or something like that, but it's not universal. So it's very difficult to be implemented in a large scale system. No? So, it happens in the maritime sector. We are not advancing in sometimes because it's difficult to share information, because that information has to work here in United States, in China, in Australia, and everywhere. So it's difficult to put everything together. Okay.
Well, yeah, I would say yes. I would say sometimes we forget that standardization is a big part of all this change, and because I think it's well, quite formal, but it's also a quite important thing in this field.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to another question. Could the Port Authority representative talk about any initiative where they are jointly collaborating on digital transformation pilot projects? I lead a college, but he has a college with the blockchain consortia. Do we work together?
Well,
sometimes
I will say yes,
Yeah,
competition. Yeah. Well, I think, for example, Barcelona and Valencia, it's a good example. We have different projects together. For example, we are part of the loop ports that I mentioned, the loop port initiative. And in this project that I've mentioned some of them, we've been working with, for example, Piraeus, which is the other big competitor in terms of container traffic in the Mediterranean, but we don't have problems in sharing information. And I think this is the way, because you mentioned also that some things you can be a leader, but in other, you have to be a follower or a colleague. So it's good to test and to try together. I think that there are, well, I would say there are many initiatives.
I have to add to that of course Barcelona and Valencia are very hard competitors. That's true, no? Because we are 300 kilometers one to the other. But anyway, we are collaborating in many things. I have to say that at this moment we have 2 innovation projects that are implemented in the Port of Barcelona, but that are managed by Fundación Valencia Port, and I have no problem in recognizing that. And also at this moment, as Juan Manuel has told, we are working together in the fund Port 4.0. It's, well, all Spanish ports are working together in that, and I'm putting 20 million euros for innovation in the port system. There is a question I've seen here. Sorry, let me to find, because probably we can answer that. A moment. Okay, good morning. I'm Samantha Giasirani, project manager of Blue Grow Greece and an initiative for startups in Greece. And I would like to ask the Port of Amsterdam and Port of Barcelona if you provide to your startups funding. What kind of services do you provide to startups? The hub is something like Port XL in Rotterdam. In our case, yes, there is a fund, Ports 4.0, that affects all the Spanish ports. You can apply because there is no restriction about foreign startups or foreign companies, but the only requirement is that there has to be the support of a Spanish port, and the pilot or the implementation has to be developed in a Spanish port, but it could be a foreign company. Okay, so you can ask Valencia or Barcelona or Bilbao or Algeciras or any other port and try to do. In the case of Amsterdam, sorry, I don't know. Please, Jan, can you answer her?
What we do not do is in Port of Amsterdam is what Port XL does. Port XL focuses on helping startups to get ready for a market vision or financial rounds. There are several Rockstart, Startup Bootcamp organizations in Amsterdam who do that. So we focus especially on startups who already have a pilot, a proven product, can start up a demo plant, or have some first customers. And we help them not only by the funding, but also by the network we have as a Port Authority. And it can be network for in the bio-based chemical industry or the circular industry to get feedstocks from other companies in the ports, or to have a co-siting concepts where they could be located next to an existing industry and use the feedstock from that industry, for instance.
Okay. Another question from Anjan Barwotkan, the Novazim. Initiative, and it's often important for cross-border collaboration, maritime certification data. What about cross-bordering information and the management of that?
Amsterdam and Rotterdam, we are main shareholder in Port-based. That's an IT system where you can put in your estimated time of arrival, which we use in the harbor management information systems, which we also built together with Rotterdam. But you can also put in your custom declarations and your harbor due declarations. So through one system, you actually, as a ship owner, you can put in 3 information files at the same time. But because we have an open market, we're not involved in custom-free zones or those kind of things.
Customs are customs always. Okay. Mark Smith provides end-to-end visibility to manufacturers and producers. They aggregate information along the entire chain and provide predictive analytics and deviation detection. He is asking about if we can benefit from their algorithms and if we are open to provide transparency through companies like ours to companies and so on. Maybe we can extend the question about the data sharing, the transparency, the problems with sharing information and to give into companies to make tests or to try to develop new products and services.
Well, the main problem there is that a lot of the data is competitive information and what's private information, which as Port Authority we can't share with others. In Port-based, the IT company, Port of Amsterdam and Rotterdam, they have something called a sandbox. So they made the information anonymous, and that can be used for analysis, for instance. But the data is owned by the cargo owner. So very often as a Port Authority, a ship comes in and it has this many containers on board, but you don't know what's on board of the container. So very often the terminal doesn't know if the container is being shipped by barge or by rail or by truck to the next phase, and what will be the day when it will be shipped. So sharing these kind of data could help port efficiency, but at the same time, you see that a lot of logistic parties in the chain are not willing to share it. And that's where systems like blockchains could come in to make it easier to share data without being afraid that your data might be used by your competitors.
Yeah, that's in the case of Barcelona, we have many data in open source, but when you arrive at the real relevant data that are related to commercial transactions and so on, that's not possible to share because without the authorization of the owner of the data, no? So in that way, there are problems to share that kind of information, to provide new services of people that wants to analyze the comportament of or the behavior of some data and so on. No? That's a problem, and also, for example, you can get the data from the customs, but in an anonymized way. I mean, with the it's not possible to identify a concrete sending or a concrete consignment. Okay, you have an aggregated data and a minimum aggregated data that sometimes is not what the user wants to know. No? So it's a difficult question to solve. Okay. Yeah.
Can I add, Carlos, on that? Just what Jan said, that for sort of commercially sensitive data, of course, it's kind of a barrier to share. But operational data could be utilized for doing predictive analytics, and that's where perhaps Port could do what I call data philanthropy. Give data as a sandbox, which is rightly mentioned, to actually do some experimentation and ideation in this direction.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need the approval of the owner of the data that you can use it. Yeah. And as a Port Authority, we are only a small part in the whole logistical chain. So you have to need a cooperation within the chain to get to these kind of solutions.
Sure.
I don't know, Piet, how is it in Antwerp?
But of course, you have, I think there are, from a technical point of view, that should not be difficult. I think like in the Netherlands, we have built in Antwerp Nextport, where you have a secure data governance system where companies can easily track and trace who is using their data and give rights to certain parties to use their data or not. So that's in place. And that's working, but I think which is much more difficult is the whole approach to data, because everybody thinks his own data is very valuable and the one of his neighbor is just rubbish. And that's of course not true. But I think you see it's changing quite fast these days, probably also impacted by COVID, is that people start understanding that sharing data is crucial for a smooth and future supply chain in imports. And once that mentality is becoming more and more common, I think it will go very fast, and I'm quite optimistic. I think like in the Netherlands, we have been fighting for that already many years, but probably it's now the time where you will see an acceleration in that.
Okay. There are many questions, and there are arriving more of them, so I think it will not be able, because there are maybe a couple of additional questions, and we have to close the webinar. It's a pity because some of them are very interesting. Here is a question about IoT. No? I'm wondering to know about the maintenance of the sensors in the port environment that sometimes is a hard environment. If this is a problem, or this is a hindrance to transmit real-time data about operations and based on infrastructure.
Maybe just very short, because we have some experience with that in Antwerp. I think indeed there was also a question on installing IoT devices in K-walls. That's very difficult, that's very expensive, and that's very hard for maintenance. So I think you should not do that. Today, there are other means to measure things. You can use machine vision, smart cameras for a lot of things today. You have wireless sensors, which are becoming very small, magnetic or not. You can install very easily. So that's a market which is changing very fast. And also from a communication point of view, like in Antwerp, we have a LoRa network, so a low range network. Of course, that's not to transmit massive amount of data, but just having a small sensor saying every minute, I'm still here, or I'm not here, or whatever, limited packages of data, that's feasible and that's cheap. Back again, technology implementation should be cheap, otherwise don't do it.
I agree with you, Pete, because that's the reason we are moving to a artificial vision systems instead of sensor system, because maintenance and in some environments inside the port are very complex. And also there are a lot of iron in the ports, so transmissions and communications sometimes are not perfect. So it's good to move to other systems in some places. The human factor.
I had a small question. It was also on the question and answer side. 5G. You heard a lot of talk about 5G. I was wondering how other ports handle the challenge. What will 5G mean for us as a port? It's a difficult question, I understand.
Yeah. I have to recognize that we wanted to develop a pilot in 5G inside the port, and at the end we will do it, but it was difficult to find the pilot. I mean, where to use 5G, because most of the things you can do with 4G or 3G without problems. So you need a lot of speed. It should be something that you cannot do with the existing systems, because if not, it has no sense, no? So it has been very difficult. It has been very difficult to identify a pilot just for ports and to implement 5G in a full way. But we are working on that.
Carlos, maybe in Antwerp, currently we have running 3 POCs with 5G, with different vendors and suppliers. And indeed, I think, first of all, 5G, the value there overall will be in a B2B context. It's not in a B2C context. You see also the big telecom operators struggling with that, how to position 5G. With our costly licenses, which are in some countries already auctioned, but in Belgium, for instance, not. So, but what I see is that in the chemical industry, for instance, in Antwerp, they will use on the local side, okay, these areas are big, 100, 200 hectares, but they will use there a closed, secure 5G network for their own operations and really come to the industry 4.0 automation with all the advantages by having 5G on no latency and security and so on. From a port authority, one of the applications or use cases we are working is, for instance, on the tugboats. When you have big ships, they have 2 tugboats. It's not easy always for the captain to have a smooth communication with the other tugboat because he is behind or in front of the big ship. So they are having a real-time, reliable video stream that could be very useful because then the captain sees what's happening on the other side of the ship. So that's one of the tests we are doing. A second one is transmitting real-time depth information from depth sounding boat to the shore, because if you do depth measurements, you collect a lot of data today that is processed on board, and next day that's transmitted into the system. So that's the second one. And the third one is on drones, using 5G. And I think there, if you look to smart shipping and drones, having broadband or wider data volumes transmitted real time, you will need that to have that real-time view and 5G. A lot of things are working on 4G, but 5G is just working faster and also cheaper, by the way.
Let's finish with a question related to the human factor. Embracing automation could create jobs as well as eliminate them. How can it affect the economy of the city? Maybe it's for you, Juan Manuel, because you have introduced the human factor in your presentation.
Yeah.
Or if not, we can extend, we can answer this question because I think it's important for our ports.
Yeah, I think it's quite relevant. Yes, well, we are in the middle of this change. We're beginning to change many things in many business, and of course, it will change the way the jobs that we are creating. I've mentioned also in my presentation the importance that we give to the almost 40,000 jobs that are linked with the port in Valencia, in the Valencia region. But we really believe that we will have other, and it was also mentioned by Pieta. I think he mentioned that the importance that to give the people the proper jobs and giving added value, that will be new options for this added value. And we will have to move toward the machines to make what the machines are more efficient. And I think that that will change, and hopefully, if we deal with this movement, we will create different and with more value-added jobs. I don't know if you agree with me.
Pete, Jan?
Me? Yeah.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah. I think, first of all, because it's always difficult discussion, automation and losing jobs, I think it should be very clear. I prefer to work for a company who is innovative than one which is not innovative, because there are so many examples to be given. If companies are not innovative in market, they disappear over time. It's like that. And I think everybody can give examples in his area where big companies, I give one example in Antwerp, Afra Hevaart, 30 years ago, 12,000 people were working there. Today, 1,500. One of the main drivers was lack of innovation. So they missed the digital age. Second thing is, I think people don't like to do stupid jobs. Nobody likes to do that. stupid, repetitive job. Nobody likes to do that. Ask an assistant who has to every month give in the credit card information for 200 people and 2-day work. She doesn't like to do that. So try to take away these jobs by implementing technology. You can use RPA, for instance, on that example. And you can say, yeah, it's not easy, of course, to transform or re-educate a truck driver, which is 55, and maybe lose his jobs because we go to automated trucks. First of all, these automated trucks will not be there in the coming 2-3 years. So we talk about transitions, which are long term. We have in Western Europe, in most countries, a very good education and social system. So there are buffers existing. And it's of course not easy to sometimes transfer people to other jobs, but that will be a kind of gradual process. And I will not believe that that switch is happening in 1 year time. It happened in the past, by the way. I can give you an example. In Flanders, in 1843, in 3 years' time, 800,000 people lost their jobs because the spinning wheel machine moved from manual, and that happened in 3 years' time. So that's disruption. I don't see that happening in the current context.
Jan, something about the human factor?
Well, the most important thing is the human factor. If you talk about innovation, you need also innovation on the human factor. So innovation in getting colleges, university involved in port development. And that's a whole new step in ports. You see that the old crane driver is totally different from the new crane driver. And yes, it will cost some jobs, but the main problem is that as a port, you're trying to keep these innovations out of your port. The cargo will just as easily go to another region or another port. So this is a global development, and it challenges the port authorities because they have to work more closely with IT, with startups for these innovations, but also with local and regional universities and university colleges.
As a conclusion, I agree completely with you. I think that, I cannot talk about the future, but if you look at the past, the old revolutions has created more jobs than destroyed, because the first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, the computerization, the development of internet and so on has created a lot of jobs, and of course some jobs has disappeared. The problem is not the jobs destroyed. The problem is that there are different jobs. So the people that has lost their job cannot find another one in the same sector or in the same area. So I think that the post has to have an important role in training, in facilitating the change of job, in predict this transition that you, Jan, are talking about, and to help the sector to move from one position to the other position with different job, with different profession, and so on. Okay, I'm sorry, but we are out of time. There are many questions in the panel, but I think that we are out of time at this moment. So, Piet, Kaustap, Jan, Juan Manuel, thank you very much for your speech. It has been very interesting. I think that we are quite aligned about the Smartport concept, because the same word has appeared in one and the another speech. I see some words that I think they are in all the speeches. As we have talked about the sharing, about twin ports, about energy transition, about data management. So we are talking about the same things. That means that all of us are smart ports, or all of us are stupid ports. But I think that the first idea is the good one. So thanks to the audience. Sorry because have not been able to answer all the questions that you have asked us. And I hope that you liked this webinar, and I hope to see you again in another webinar organized by BS Group. Thank you very much to all of you.